welcome back. We're going to be looking at the 30, 60, 90 triangle today, doing some practice problems. Then tonight's homework is a Google form. But in the class today, you should be able to identify and solve for missing information in special right triangles. So in the 30, 60, 90 triangle, it actually is coming from the equilateral triangle. And it's when you go ahead and if you create the altitude line for this triangle, we get it where our base gets split in half and we form a 90-degree angle from the altitude. And this means that if I have my hypotenuse as 6 and then I create the altitude line AD, I know now my base is 3 because the fact that we have these two triangles, they end up being equal to each other because their hypotenuse is the same. They share the altitude line, so that means this side's going to be the same. They have the angle in between that's going to be equal. So based off of side angle side, we know that these two pieces are congruent. So I want to go ahead and find the length of AD. And I want you to write your answer in simplest radical form. What you should have done using the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, your 90-degree angle points to your c, which is your hypotenuse. So my c value is going to be 6. And in my case, I just made my 3 my b value. A squared is 27. If we take the square root of both sides, the square root of 27 is equal to a. But we can simplify this radical. We can factor it out to be 9 and 3. The square root of 9 is 3, square root 3. So AD is 3 square root 3. If I create my altitude line for this example, again, I create that 90-degree angle. I break my base up in half. When I apply the Pythagorean theorem, I get that b is equal to the square root of 3. In this example, I want to calculate again the height, simplest radical form. Again, I make my altitude line, my right angle. I know my base gets cut in half. So when I apply the Pythagorean theorem, I should get this. Notice always remembering to split and factor whatever you get in here to see if you can simplify the radical. Again, I'm going to go ahead for this one. Make my altitude line, show my 90-degree angle. Both sides are equal to each other. And if I apply the Pythagorean theorem, I get 3 square root 3. The pattern you should have noticed between all of these is when it comes to the 30, 60, 90 triangle, the length of the leg between 60 and 90 is half the hypotenuse, and the length of the leg between 90 and 30 is always square root 3 times the length of the other leg. So drawn out, notice, between 90 and 60, that's our x value, okay? And then from there, the other two parts are just proportional to that x value. So if you take that value, multiply it by 2, you get the hypotenuse. If you multiply it by the square root of 3, you get the height. So in this example here, if we follow that same pattern, again, between the 60 and the 90, that's my x value. So if I know the hypotenuse is 16, I can figure out that x is just 8, and then y has to be 8 square root 3, because again, we're matching it to the proportions of the 30, 60, 90. Because if 2x is equal to 16, then I know that x has to equal 8 if I divide both sides by 2. And now that I know x is 8, I know y is equal to x times the square root of 3. I know what x is, so now I know that y is 8 square root 3. Here again, I'm solving for x and y. I am looking for the value of x. In this case, if we look at our triangle, we know the value between 90 and 30, which is x square root 3. So I need to just solve for x. I need to isolate x. I know x square root 3 is equal to 11. So in order to isolate x, I'm going to divide both sides by the square root of 3. Remember that we talked about yesterday, we cannot have radicals in our denominator. So I'm just going to go ahead and fix that. And once I do that fix, I end up getting that the fraction is 11 square root 3 over 3. So that's my x value. And again, the proportions to that is I could just take this value, multiply it by 2 to get my hypotenuse. So if I take that, multiply it by 2, I get 22 square root 3 over 3. The last one I want to solve for the area. So I make my altitude line, split it up into 18 and 36 as my hypotenuse. Again, this is a 30, 60, 90, so I know that the height is 18 square root 3 based off of the base. I want to find the area, so for area, it's base times height divided by 2. My height and my base, if I multiply those two values, I get 324 square root 3. And if I divide that by 2, that's just 324 divided by 2 is 162 square root 3. And I should be adding inches squared. So make sure to do that on your end. And there you go. That's today's lesson.